What's up, guys? Alright. So, just gonna give everybody a second to join. What's up, Creative? What's up, Kaya? Chelsea? Alright, so, let's see. I ate a couple of mushrooms just to get me in the zone with this because the whole thing is psychedelic, honestly. But anyway, so recap from last week's live. The reality that we perceive is comprised of the real reality and our own thinker-prover programs that are created through our belief systems, right? Turn up the volume. Let's see. Turn up the volume. I can move closer. How about that? Is that a little better? Is it good? Can you hear me? All right. Did you turn up your volume, Kaya? All right, so. Okay. Can anybody else hear me? Is it all right? How about now? The setup is the same. All right. So yeah, last week, the reality that we live in, is comprised of the real reality, and then through our belief systems and our thinker-prover setup. That's how we experience what we experience, right? Cool. So, with that said, I'm gonna start with hardware, software. So the human brain and software programs. Now I know that the human brain, I'm not saying that the human brain is a computer, because it's not at all. Even with the most advanced quantum computers at this moment, that's much closer to what the human brain and mind interface are like, but it's still not the same, because our brains and minds are way more, exponentially more advanced than, I don't know if we could ever create a replica, honestly. But for the sake of analogy and metaphor, I have learned to understand the brain-mind interfaces through technological jargon, right? So our brain is not a computer. But when we consider everything that humans create, we can know there's been these fucking fruit flies. There's like 3 alive left. When we think about everything that humans have created, everything that we have, let's stick to technology. Technology is a reflection of some aspect of Homo sapiens, of the modern human, right? So in our world, one way or another, these reflections of something about us, like the telephone, for example, or even this video that I'm doing. We used to operate from the collective, right? So there was no language before the Tower of Babel, or Babel, whatever. We didn't speak unless we were going to create or manifest, right? Bring into existence. So just like telepathy, when you take LSD, smoke DMT or whatever, it's not so much of a conversation, like binary computing, ones and zeros, information traveling from me to you, and then uploaded into you through your ears and your mind, or articulating, filtering, whatever. It's trinary, where the information is already there, right? I've had numerous experiences where I've done psychedelics with a friend, or been in public and a stranger that's not even on the psychedelic, I notice them. They don't notice that I'm noticing them, but they turn around and we giggle, right? And when you try to put words or syntax to why we're giggling, it gets weird because language is just, that's a whole conversation for another time. But the connection is already there. We understand, we know, right? It's like gnosis and everything. So it doesn't have to go back and forth. But we used to be telepathic. We still are, but that ability is kind of asleep in all of us, most of us. And that's why when you have experiences like through psychedelics or breath work, deep meditation, intense meditation and stuff, you will have those experiences. But it's not something that you're creating. It's not something that you are learning for the first time. You're relearning something. You're remembering something that you could do. So it works when you don't try to be excited about trying this thing that you unconsciously or consciously believe that you cannot do, right? Like levitation. If you try to learn how to levitate, if you start to levitate even a few centimeters, you can't get excited about it, because if you do, you'll drop. And it's really hard to do it again, because that tells the universe that you're trying to do something that you can't do. And that's not true. That's not factual. You're just trying to redo something that you are remembering, but you have to override a lot of old programs. Anyway, our technology, one way or another, is a reflection of something about us, innate about us, that is actually natural. Okay, cool. So this is why it helps me to use technology's vocabulary to better understand mind, brain, peripheral, central nervous system, etc. Right? So with that said, nothing in science is referred to as is, right? If you think about it, everything about science is about theories, but we forget that that's what science is. It's theorizing and then implementing experiments to see if every outcome can prove or disprove a theory, right? Or a hypothesis. So science does not operate with is, even though it does speak that way now. But it can't do that because it's due to metaphysical implications, and try as we might to maintain a sense of, pragmatism of some sort, it just falls apart, right? But because we're here, we're the kind of people that can talk about this shit. We don't have to try to explain it to science, okay? At least not now. So here we go. If we say that the brain is a computer, we can translate that as brain can be considered or modeled by computer, right? A description quoted from Robert Anton Wilson about the brain is, it appears to be made up of matter in electrocolloidal suspension, protoplasm, right? Colloids are pulled together toward a condition of gel by their surface tensions, as this pulls all gel-like substances together. And then conversely, these are pushed apart toward a condition of soul, right? So you got gel, keeping everything together, and then you have a condition of soul via their electrical charges. So the same gel-like substances produce an electrical charge, and those electrical charges, they repel each other. Similar to in electricity or electrical charges, that's just what happens, right? So they start to want to push apart. That is perfect, because when you have something that is pushed together with one thing wants to congeal, put together, and the other thing wants to spread apart, keep apart, push apart, it creates a balance. So the one that wants to pull everything together doesn't pull everything together. And the one that wants to push everything apart doesn't obliterate everything apart. It creates a balance, and then it could just exist, right? Okay, so I'm really doing my best to consolidate this in layman's. So this gel-soul phenomena creates equilibrium. Think about how opposites attract, right? And it allows for continuity and life to occur. Let's see. If you veer too far from, I just explained that part. If you veer too far into gel or too far into soul, you start to have dis-ease or death, right? When there is no balance. It doesn't have to happen immediately, but sometimes it can happen immediately. Any chemical entering the brain or the blood-brain barrier changes the gel-soul equilibrium, right? That's not a bad thing, but it's just nice to know. Obviously, the brain works through chemicals, right? Compounds. So when you eat food, you're interfacing with chemicals in the food, right? And not just that, but your body also converts chemicals into other things so that they're bioavailable to the body, but we're going to stick to the brain, right? So it's not just drugs, pharmaceutical, psychedelics, food. Food changes the way that you think. It changes the way, or it affects the way that you think, the way that you feel, right? So foods or psychedelics will alter consciousness and even the subconscious as well. So interacting with something for prolonged periods of time, you may stop experiencing the conscious effects of it, and that's because they go into the unconscious now, the subconscious, right? You don't need to be present for it to do what it does. It takes away from you living and experiencing life. If you were constantly, on an autistic spectrum, that part that's always analyzing every fucking thing that's moving around, those individuals more times than not cannot function in social settings, right? Because their minds, their brains are operating from a place of calculating, receiving data, filtering that data, wanting to understand that data. It's wild. So things like social cues get put either to the background or they just, they're completely omitted, right? The weather's been changing and I'm a little sniffly now. So anyway, so these compounds, whether it's from food, drugs, medications, whatever, they alter consciousness and the subconscious. Ideas also do the same thing too. So whatever the thinker thinks, if you guys remember this, the prover proves as well, right? So an idea that you're playing around with in your mind, you can have a new set of information, a new idea that's presented to you, and it might conflict with an old set of patterns or an old set of belief systems, right? That's evidence that this is how this stuff works, right? But again, these are just models that I'm describing. Everything's a fucking model, right? Unless you make the stone and remember the thing that you forgot, when you forgot it the second that you were born. This is just how these models work. And I'm not the only one that's been put to the test. People like Robert Anton Wilson, Carl Jung, Alan Watts, Terence McKenna, Phil Hine, all these guys, they've been putting this stuff to the test. And you just keep getting pretty much the same results, sometimes more or less than others, sometimes with much more definition to them, more substance, and it's pretty fucking cool. So the thinker thinks and the prover proves via the mechanics just described. consider all reality a psychedelic experience. Honestly, I mean, I've thought about this and I've seen it on psychedelic trips. I remember my birth moment, but it was very abstract because I didn't have the programs implemented yet to really understand what the fuck I was looking at. But me at that time, when I was remembering birth, was able to start to add and connect syntax to kind of get a picture of what it was that I was experiencing, right? So the map is not the territory, but merely a model. And this is just that. This is a map, right? When you look at a map of a place, it's not the territory itself. It's just a model of the territory that you're in at the moment, right? So you cannot taste the meal by reading the menu. Even if you can, imagine, but you can't taste the meal at all if you're just reading through the menu, right? So you have to actually go and experience these things for yourself. So a computer's hardware is all of its physical components: monitor, motherboard, SS drive, circuits, keyboard, and so on, right? And then the software is anything that can be programmed into the computer, including abstract software. For example, if I have an idea and I put it on a piece of paper, that's an abstract program. And I can then take that idea that I wrote on a piece of paper and turn it from abstract into reality by knowing, if I know how to speak computer language, if I know how to code, then I can put that idea that I put on a piece of paper into a computer and turn it into a legitimate software program, right? Let's see. Piece of paper, blah, blah, blah. So hardware is more real, right? We'll call it real for now, than the software itself in the physical sense as it exists in the material spectrum. And similarly, software is real because destroying hardware doesn't necessarily mean that software is destroyed, right? You can destroy a computer, and there's people that can take the hard drive and do some crazy stuff to it and be able to still extrapolate information, software information from that computer. Although there are ways to destroy hardware or hardware and the hard drive where it's done, right? Like setting it on fire and letting it melt to a little ball. You can't retrieve anything. So let's consider the brain hardware inside the human body, and the software exists everywhere, both in the brain and all throughout reality, right? Think of it as this: the software of Bach, Charlie Chaplin, Plato, George Washington, Paracelsus. They don't physically exist, right? But they do within the software of the hardware of beyond space and time, right? So you talk about Bach, and you can go to so many countries that have had access to music, right? And you can find that software program. You could even mention the name Bach to someone who's never heard Bach, but they'll like, bing, like an idea comes in. It's like, oh yeah, like classical music or something. The software program exists beyond space-time, through all space-time, right? So, if everything is everywhere all at once, how does consciousness have individuality where you're you and I'm me? Well, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. We've mentioned how we're different types of programs that co-create our reality and self-beingness. So let's talk about these stages, these 4 stages, right? These 4 stages are part of the precursors that allow us to be individuals, right? And they happen the moment that you're born. So the first one is genetic imperatives, hardwired programs, or biological instincts. And we're going to get a lot into these guys. Now, the genetic imperatives are further programmed by the following. 2, imprints. These are brain designed via genetics to only accept during certain points of development, right? Known in ethology as times of imprint vulnerability. That should tell you what is like the number one time of imprint vulnerability. A newborn. Your whole childhood. Imprint vulnerability. You're susceptible. You know, they say the brain is a sponge, right? The mind is like a sponge. It's like watching a little AI. I love watching kids, man. They're hilarious. They're trying everything out. You know, I get surprised when a little kid is, you can see it in their eyes. They're about to lie to you. And it's hilarious. It's like watching a little baby AI that just came into this world, slowly absorbing things from its environment to create a self-identity. So 3 is conditioning. These are programs built into the imprints, right? So you got your genetic imperatives. These are further programmed by the imprints, right? And then conditioning. It's just like Pavlov's dog. You just repeat the thing, and then the mind accepts these things, right? They're looser, the conditioning circuits, they're looser and easier to change via counter conditioning. And we usually experience these things where we might have had an idea that we picked up, a conditioning that we picked up in our home between like birth to, let's say, like 5, 6 years old, right? But then you go to kindergarten or first grade right after that. So now you go into the outside world. And all of a sudden, counter conditioning occurs because the original conditioning that you got from home is now being challenged by a new condition or counter condition that you learned in kindergarten or first grade, whether it was from a teacher or your peers, right? And the fourth one is learning. So that's self-explanatory, right? These are even looser and softer than conditioning, meaning these are even easier to change. You can read a book, hear a quote from some philosopher, a poem, a song. Even if it doesn't have lyrics, it might alter something in you, and that new learning could affect the conditioning, which affects or can affect the imprints, right? So generally, the imprints being so hardwired can always override any subsequent conditioning or learning. So the first 2, genetic imperatives and imprints, they're really fucking ingrained. They're hardwired. They're really fucking difficult to change. They're so deep that we are usually not aware of them. Almost always we are not aware of them. It's not that we can't be aware of them. We don't need to be. They're running in the background, right? Imprints will act biological and enter fight or flight whenever tampered with. These exist at a deep neurological level, so are seldom known, unless a physical or psychological or emotional program / experience occurs. For example, a new idea, but more with near-death experiences or clinical death experiences, psychedelic spiritual experiences, and more. Imprints are frozen into the neurological hardware and are non-negotiable. They're non-negotiable aspects of our individuality and establishes the limits, perimeters within which all subsequent conditioning and learning occurs. So all of your learning, all of your conditioning that you're going to experience are going to act somewhat as a filter, because the genetic imperatives and the imprints are going to filter out anything that is not in agreement to those things, right? And that's why they're non-negotiable. They're fucking hard. Brain hardware is localized. Brain cells are right here, right now. Software, non-local. Points, events, everywhere, every when. So before our first imprint, right at birth, the earth was without form and void. Our minds, thinker prover, empty. Nothing there. Chaotic, full of potential, and without any structure. So when we come here and we immediately forget so that we can come and have the experience, we're empty, right? And a lot of mythic traditions, they call this state of consciousness enlightenment, or consciousness exploded. When consciousness is exploded, you're all things all at once. Now let me talk about that real quick. You might have had an experience on a psychedelic, right? Like smoking DMT or bufo or whatever, and you realize that you are everything. That's still not it. That's not it. Consciousness exploded. What happens at that very moment is you're not aware of it. You just are. So you're not aware that I am singular, but also part of. When you realize that shit at that very moment, when your consciousness explodes, right, and it is all things, there is no differentiating anything. So you're not, oh, I'm also that redwood that I hiked around yesterday. I'm that deer that popped out for a second. I'm the paperclip on my, on my notebook. Like, no. You are. And it's really difficult to come back and talk about that. But when you do sober up and come back on the come down, the best that you can do is say, oh, I am all things. All is one is all. And that's cool. Like, that's cute. But what then? What do you do with that? What do you do with that information? Another day. So, there was a guy named G. Spencer Brown, and he wrote a foundational book on mathematics and form called Laws of Form. It becomes clear in this, it's a book on mathematics, right? He's not talking about metaphysics or anything like that. But when you go through it and you read it, you start to understand that he's also talking about a process that we've all been through in conjunction. And when we were born, everything that happened at that very moment, the second that we were born, and everything after that is explained in this book of Laws of Form by this guy, right? And you know how they say that mathematics is like a universal language, the language of God, blah, 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 right? Sacred geometry. Okay. So, Book of Law, or Laws of Form. So, yeah. You start to see the infinite sea of signals of consciousness, the specific ones of myself and my world. So the best description of an LSD trip, like a good heavy dose of LSD, is that book by Brown, Laws of Form. Every imprint after that, after being born, adds on and complicates the software programs we experience as our reality. And it's further progressed by conditioning and learning, thus creating the map of our reality. Now, here's the thing. It creates the map of your individual reality. That's part of the individualism part. It's not a map of everyone's reality, right? Because if you did have a map of everyone's reality, that sounds like a shit show, and I've been there. So the structure of this brain circuitry is what our thinker thinks and our prover proves. And at some point, we don't have to think about it anymore, where we can automatically just experience this contrived set of programs and call it reality. So now we're going to go into, after understanding those four, Timothy Leary wrote this really, really weird and awesome set of works that talks about what he called the eight circuit model of consciousness, right? By the way, this is not accepted. It's like the FDA. It's not accepted by neuroscience or anything like that. But that's what makes it even cooler, right? And again, maps of reality. It's not the territory itself, right? It's just models. That's it. So, with that, we'll start with so it's 8 circuits, but we're going to start with the first 4. The first one, the moment that you're born, the second that you come out of that vagina, or really soon out of a freaking AI pod, the first circuit is the oral biosurvival circuit. So, the question, is this environment safe or dangerous? The primary polarities. Approach. First you ask, obviously not by asking with words because you're a newborn baby, right? This is just how the circuits work, and we model these circuits and then we add words so that we can fucking talk about it, right? So the primary polarities of this first circuit is approach, nourishment, safety, versus avoidance, poison, threat, predator, right? Stage of imprint, womb to 18 months, the oral stage. It governs the most fundamental life functions: sucking, clinging, cuddling, crying. It's the reptilian brain, the brainstem, in action, concerned entirely with the homeostasis of the organism. Very basic, right? When you experience at that moment a positive imprint, the world is safe, nurturing, supportive. It's like the womb, right? The universe is your mother. You move through life with a baseline of trust, relaxation, and an open receiving posture. You instinctively gravitate towards nourishing people, environments, and opportunities. Negative imprint. The world is dangerous, withholding, a hostile place. This creates chronic, free-floating anxiety, paranoia, and a clenched defensive posture. Life is a constant struggle for basic security, and you are prone to seeing threats where they don't exist, right? Thinker prover. The neurophysiology of this, primarily the brainstem and the reticular formation, the oldest parts of the brain, regulating autonomic functions and alertness. The key trigger, the physical presence or absence of the mothering one, or its substitute, a mothering figure, right? Warmth, food, comfort, and physical safety are its currencies. The second circuit is the anal emotional territorial circuit. So the question for that is, am I dominant or subordinate? What is my status in the pack? The primary polarities are dominance/control versus submission/surrender. This stage of imprint is approximately 18 months to 4 years. The anal territorial stage. It governs emotions, territoriality, power dynamics, will, and ego. It's the mammalian brain, limbic system, concerned with one's place in the social hierarchy. A positive imprint of this is a sense of personal power, competence, and the ability to effectively control one's environment and emotions. You can be appropriately assertive and also gracefully surrender when needed. You understand the dance of social hierarchies without being consumed by them. So you're not gonna say shit like resist, fight back, all that stuff. You know what I mean? At any given moment, but it's interesting, right? Like when we're what is it called? The terrible twos, right? That's like the at its fucking peak, up to age 4, where kids are constantly struggling. They're developing their own ideas about their relationship to these things in their environment, and they have to push it. They have to experiment, right? They have to test it out. So a negative imprint, when this occurs, is a tendency toward either robotic, rigid control, the anal retentive tyrant, or helpless submission and emotional chaos, the loser. This manifests as rage, shame, guilt, and a constant stressful game of one-upmanship. The neurophysiology of this is the limbic system, particularly the amygdala, emotion, and related structures. A key trigger for this is the socialization process, potty training, learning boundaries, and navigating the first power struggles with parents and peers. The third circuit, the time-binding semantic circuit. The question for that one is, what does this mean? Very basic. How can I symbolize and manipulate the world? All kids are like that, one way or another. The primary polarities of the time-binding semantic circuit is concrete association, dogma, versus abstract pattern recognition, creativity. And it's interesting because when we get to a certain grade in school, we go from abstract pattern recognition, being creative, to concrete association, dogma. We start to pick up a lot of programs like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember clearly when I was a kid, I don't even know why, but I used to respond with, I don't know. I'm 6 years old. I don't know. I'm giving it, bigger people words because I understand it now. I'm just a baby. I don't know. I don't even know what my options are. And you're also programmed with this social circuit that's the idea of living, of existing, is get good grades, right? Follow the rules. Learn how to color inside the lines, but always color inside the lines. And all that kind of crap hinders our creativity. It hinders our intelligence. And I've said this before to you guys, there is a difference between being smart and being intelligent. And school systems, they don't feed or nourish intelligence. They feed and nourish being smart. Being smart is you get all the good grades, plaques, certificates, trophies, and all this crap because you're a parrot. You know how to repeat. You know how to take in information, hold on to that information, at least long enough to be tested on the information and regurgitate it back. And you get praised, you get rewarded for being smart. If you are intelligent, you start to question everything. That's what I did. I questioned everything, and it wasn't because I wanted to defy or argue or fight everything. I just want to know. I remember when I was a little kid, my grandma would tell me, so I would clean my room. No, I would clean the house. I would do all the chores, right? Wash the dishes, dry them with the rag, put them away, put all the utensils where they belong, right? Go clean the bathroom, do some crappy kid sweeping and stuff, And then I would go to my room on a Friday night after I did all that and play Nintendo. And she'd say, no, you can't play the Nintendo right now. You got to clean up your room. And I would say to her, I remember this really clearly. I would say to her, well, I did all the other things that you wanted me to do. I cleaned the whole house. And I think I did a really good job. And this is my room. And I now understand that even though it's my room, it's your house because you pay for everything. It's still the place that I'm sleeping in. You don't have to see it. I can close the door and keep playing Nintendo. And I'll clean the room at some point, on Sunday before I go to school on Monday. And she was still saying, well, you got to clean your room. And you can't play Nintendo unless you clean your fucking room. And I would ask her why. If I did all the other stuff, if I cleaned the house, if I did all the chores and everything, why do I have to clean my room right now and not play Nintendo? Why can't I just play Nintendo and do my room before I go to school on Monday? I either never got an answer or got told, like some Matilda shit, I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong, kind of thing, right? My reality was constantly throughout my childhood, destroying the circuits that I had of intelligence and creativity so that I can fit into and perform the tasks and responsibilities required to be part of the social structure or social norm. And when I didn't, and when I kept doing that, like in school, I would ask, why, right? And I just always got in trouble. So that's the time-binding semantic circuit, a positive imprint for this. So it governs symbolic thoughts. All right, the stage of this imprint is approximately age 4 to 7. The Y stages. It governs symbolic thought, language, logic, artifact making, and the ability to live in a linear past, present, future. This is the first specifically human circuit, the left hemisphere lobe of the neocortex, right? And a positive imprint with this would be the ability to think clearly, communicate effectively, manipulate symbols like math and code, and create useful artifacts. You can learn and follow rules without being enslaved by them. A negative imprint with this circuit is being stuck in a semantic loop, dogmatic thinking, inability to see beyond literal meanings, lawyer-like pedantry, and being trapped by one's own conceptual models. The world is seen only through the filter of words and established symbols, like socially established symbols, government, whatever, right? The neurophysiology of this circuit is the left hemisphere of the neocortex, and the key trigger is the learning of language and the development of the ability to handle and create tools. Circuit 4 is the moral, social, sexual circuit. The question for this one is, what are the rules of the tribe? How do I belong and propagate? The primary polarities are moralistic / guilt, the parents, versus social, sexual / pride, the adults. The stage of imprint for this circuit is puberty to early adulthood. It governs sexual pleasure, and that is distinct from circuit 2, mating. Morality, conscious, tribal roles, and the adult persona. It's the domesticated primate. It's the domesticated primate circuit. Running the software of your local culture, your local religion, your neighborhood, ethnicity, blah, 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 right? A positive imprint for this circuit is a mature, functional adult personality. Hilarious, right? Because a lot of us didn't get a mature, functional adult personality in our teens because they did not have one either. You can navigate complex social roles, experience reciprocal, pleasurable sexuality, and have a moral compass that is compassionate rather than punitive. You are a responsible member of the tribe. Excuse me. A negative imprint is a heavy conscience laden with guilt, shame, and repression about sexuality and social roles. This is the circuit of the Puritan, the moralizing authoritarian, or the person trapped in a rigid, unfulfilling social role. This one came to me very clearly, not like this, like as a circuit. I came to understand all this stuff now, recently. But, for example, I recently was watching, forgot how it starts, but it's I saw the Ed Gein one, the other one, Jeffrey Dahmer on Netflix, and watching the whole story. And I had memories, like deep memories of, I didn't do any of that shit. Memories of when I was taking 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms in Silent Darkness. I think maybe by like the 12th time of doing it, where I wasn't having ego death experiences anymore. They were very beautiful, quantifying, abstract understanding, Christ consciousness, right? And enlightenment, this kind of stuff. And it was in degrees. So one of them was, it's like forgiveness, but also just acceptance. And then also getting to the point of you're not even forgiven or accepting. You just understand and you don't judge it at all. You don't see it as that person did something right or wrong. You just understand it, right? Because it's an aspect of you as an individual, but in the grand scheme of things, it's I, right? The collective I. The belief that all things are just fragments, facets of the one thing. You will be tested on that as you come to these awarenesses. And that's what it was doing to me. And it got to the point where I would do the psychedelics today. I would get shown something that I got shown the last time. That was difficult for me to even comprehend. I get shown that thing again today. I don't feel anything about it. I get it. Why would one thing fragment itself infinitely through all space and time and beyond space-time to experience itself as the perceived illusion of other and create a scenario where it would experience itself inflicting harm to itself? It's hard to understand that if you still believe that you're you and I'm me. But when you stop that program and you really come to terms that it is I, you don't see it as, and it's part of the process though, why would I do that to myself? Well, because you're calling it that thing. There's still a judgment to it. It's because I can. Because I am infinite, all, beyond all space-time, all consciousness, I. How many different ways can I experience murder? Can I experience rape? Right? It just kept taking me further and further till it got like to the child stuff. That one took me fucking months. Right? Because even when I was pretending that I got it and I was like, cool, we don't need to go there anymore, I still didn't get it. I still had like a really deep, strong judgment about this. Anyway, so getting back to the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, I was telling my wife about this and I got emotional because I remember these experiences that I had on the mushrooms. I felt compassion for the dude that did the things that he did, right? Probably shouldn't even be talking about this, but fuck it, right? If you think about it, that young man, those circuits that we already named, all the circuits were being imprinted, conditioned, all the learning that was happening through those circuits were just, it was malware, corrupt files. That's it. That's fucking hard to come to, like, full realization and acceptance and understanding and allowing. So I'm not saying that we should allow children to be raped. That is not what I'm talking about. That is not what this is about. I'm just telling you that when you start to rewire, re-imprint, rework, reprogram these circuits, well, first of all, doing it in a specific way is way better than trying to go back, which is like the limitation that I find with psychedelics a lot of the times, especially with psilocybin and low doses of DMT, whatever. We try to go back in time and try to find the culprit, the person that's at fault, the one instance where the trauma occurred. We want to blame. We want to find who was at fault. If you're working through these circuits, you don't need that data, because sometimes, and I've seen it with other people, they did find that moment in space-time where that thing happened, and they actually got worse than before they knew. They weren't prepared for it. I definitely fucking agree with the fact that you don't have to know the details, because if you think about it as well, your memory is still clouded by your perception and perspective, right? That's it. And if I go back and I see my mother doing a specific thing to me, I'm still seeing it through the eyes of that hurt child at that moment. And I can actually make that circuit worse, because I haven't changed my beliefs and understanding of my relationship in this fucking reality, right? Anyways, so then let's see. So that was the 4th circuit, and I split the 8, 4 and 4. It re-traumatizes you. Yep. And you could create something that was even more intense, worse, because new circuits that you developed are now all looking at the memory. Oh, I found the culprit. I found the thing. And you may not understand what's going on. It's Christ consciousness stuff. And it's fucking hard. And I think that it can be for everyone, as long as you're not an NPC. Maybe not this lifetime. Maybe the next one. Maybe the next one. Maybe the next one. But it's hard to have these understandings, because you have to sacrifice your ideas and beliefs about who you thought you are or were in order to accept what you are, what you is, right? It will fuck you up if you don't find some sort of ground and understanding these things as models. And everything that I'm sharing with you guys, it's a much safer way, I believe, to go about these things, so that, again, you don't fucking meddle with your memory bank, especially your unconscious stuff, and make things worse for yourself. So that was the first 4 circuits. And I've separated the first 4 from the next 4, because the second stage of circuits are much newer. Each circuit, the next 4 circuits are presently, they only occur in minorities, right? And what I mean by minorities, for example, let's say everyone that's not from old money, royalty, the ancient ruling class, you know, if you are not from that, right, then you're the minority. And but yeah, so the first four are antique circuits. What they do is that they are evolution to the present moment. And then the next four circuits, these newer circuits. Okay, sorry, hold on. I'm also reading some of my chicken scratch. So, the first four were the first four circuits, the antique ones, recapitulate evolution to the present. The newer circuits pre-capitulate to the future evolution, right? So the fifth circuit, newer circuit, is the neurosomatic circuit. The question, what if I can feel bliss and harmony in this very moment, regardless of circumstances? It'll start to make sense why these are newer circuits and why they apply to us minorities. And I'm not talking about being brown or black or anything like that, right? I'm talking about us that are not from environments, bloodlines, gene pools that they don't know what's going on here, right? I mean, a trust fund baby from a family like, let's say, the Rothschilds, right? That has always had everything and anything at their disposal. Their wish is their family's command, right? They don't have to pay for anything. They don't have to worry about it, right? They can still experience their own versions of trauma. Oh, I was walking down the street wearing my $5,000 Manolo Blahnik shoes and my heel broke, and now I'm just crying like I lost my best friend or my mother or something, right? So these circuits, the first four exist in everyone. These newer circuits specifically are addressed for us because one of the reasons is because a lot of the shit that we're experiencing in our reality is occurring because there are factions, groups of people, and they've been factions and groups of these people for a really fucking long time, since ancient times, a lot of them, right? They have created circumstances, circuits of reality that we had no choice in but to be born into and play along. They don't have to fucking go through the shit that we've had to go through. They don't go through the shit that we go through, right? These are the same people that are part of the World Health Organization, right? With fucking Carl Schwab and all these motherfuckers. Even like people like Elon, right? Like these guys, they don't live in our world. They live in a world that is protected by money, walls, abundance, wealth, circumstances, and they're looked out for. They're cared for by the systems that they created or are part of, right? So, the fifth circuit, the neurosomatic circuit, the question is, what if I could feel bliss and harmony in this very moment, regardless of circumstances? The primary polarities are somatic bliss versus alienation/anxiety. The stage of imprint, it can be triggered at any time, often through specific practices or experiences. It's governed by somatic or bodily bliss, mind-body healing, aesthetic rapture, and a shift from linear to holistic, present moment awareness. This is the first post-terrestrial, post-human circuit. It transcends the adult persona. It goes beyond that. You can start to see why it's very alienating, right? Positive imprint is a default state of somatic well-being, a body high. Life is experienced as a work of art. You feel a sense of rightness and harmony with the universe. Anxiety from the lower circuits dissolves into a relaxed, ecstatic connection to the present. So anxiety from the first four circuits that we talked about, the antique ones, you could experience those and they dissolve. You're not part of the thing. You're not affected, right? Like, I'm in the world, not of it, right? This is the newer circuits. Negative imprint is confusion, a sense of being ungrounded, or hedonistic escapism without integration. Psychedelics, right? People that have, they've gone to Peru, spent thousands every time to do ayahuasca for the fucking 36th time. They come back to the States and it's the same bullshit again. Except now they have like more bullshit to share about it, right? And they're the first ones to try to go teach and hold seminars, but they are fucked up, right? So that's a negative imprint. Confusion, a sense of being ungrounded, or hedonistic escapism without integration. I also would add, I didn't write that down, God complex, right? There is a beautiful 3.5 hour long lecture by Alan Watts on the trickster, the Joker. And one of the things that he notes in the beginning is it's not that he has a problem with LSD in general. What he doesn't agree with and feel comfortable with is that substances like LSD can give access to any person at a high dose to notice that there's a curtain and to peek behind the curtain, right? So I'm on stage, you're the audience, behind me is the curtain. I don't have any previous, disciplines, things that I do to ground myself, right? I don't perform acts of virtue, of humility, right? Of compassion, caring, discipline, all this stuff. I take a bunch of LSD and I notice that there's a curtain and I turn around and I open the curtain. I have access to what's behind the screen, what's behind the curtain, what's behind the show, how it all works. And the thing is that if I don't have any type of previous virtuous disciplinary things that I've done with myself and have practiced with others, one of the first things that I could experience is that, oh, I'm God. And develop a God complex. And if I don't have these disciplines established and I realize that I'm God, I can misinterpret that and go do evil, bad things in this world and justify it and really believe that justification, that delusion, well, I'm God. I can do whatever, right? And to a sense, that is factual, but you don't understand that or understand that. You don't have gnosis of it. But because you are naturally the thing that we call God, the ego, let's call it the ego aspect of the being, takes that and runs with it because it's something about it is familiar. And it just does whatever the fuck it wants, right? So, the neurophysiology of this circuit is the entire right brain in harmonious integration with the limbic system and the body, right? A key trigger, advanced yoga, tantra, sensory deprivation, ecstatic dance, and in the model, a specific psychoactive substances, even like cannabis, right? Not recreationally, but with intention, right? With a purpose, with a trajectory, right? Moving on to circuit 6, the meta programming circuit. The question, how do I create and change my own reality? What are the structures of my own perception? It's really cool. So even though you now know that you can alter, that you do alter, and you do affect, and you do change reality, your reality, you don't just accept that and then agree with it and then go try to fucking do it. You ask, how do I do it? I know that I can do it. How do I do that? What are the structures of my own perception? What are the circuits, belief systems of my own perception of my reality, right? And that's not easy if you're still operating from the first four or stuck in the first four, because this kind of stuff requires work. It really does. Death and rebirth. You're constantly being put through the fire. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about like hydrodistillation here. I'm talking about destructive distillation. It's dangerous. But it's only dangerous in two ways. One, because your old self will die in subsequent layers, right? And your reality will fucking die too, the way that you see it, the way that you perceive it. Its primary polarities are the programmer versus the program. Stage of imprint is triggered by conscious effort to destruct the self. Deconstruct and then destruct the self. It sounds scary, right, to some of us, but that's okay, because you're not what you thought you were, and you're not what you think you are. So maybe it's okay to just fucking destroy those and see what happens, right? It governs the ability to deconstruct, and reprogram all the lower circuits. So when we say lower circuits, the first four, right? It is the consciousness of abstraction, the awareness that all perception is a construct. This is the seat of the self-meta programmer. Positive imprint, radical freedom from conditioned reality tunnels. You can choose your beliefs, and you're aware of, you can choose your beliefs, perceptions, and reactions. You see the world as a set of dynamic, changeable programs and can rewrite your own software at will. You're not attached. You're in the world. You're not of it. That's it. And we'll get into this in the future, but this is the realm. Once you get into 5 through 8, this is the realm of the Neosha. This one specifically, because again, with the conversation of chaos magic, you're not subscribing to just one belief system. That is going back to the other four. The Neosha is not the shaman. The Neosha isn't the magician. It's not the computer programmer. It's not the hacker. It's not the herbalist. It's not the spiritual. It's a composition of all those things and more to create this one new state of beingness. Neosha, because it's nice. We like words, right? We fucking like words. We need them so that they're not just abstractions. And this is the realm of the Neosha. All right, one more time. Positive imprint, radical freedom from conditioned reality tunnels. You can choose your own beliefs, perceptions, and reactions, how you react to things, right? For example, you used to react and just get mad and yell, right? Where now you can still feel that excitement and that anger, but now you start to slowly retrain and recircuit yourself, and you can choose consciously if you want to react, and if you do, how you react. You see the world as a set of dynamic, changeable programs, and you can rewrite your own software at will, as you please. Negative imprint is the cosmic schmuck syndrome. And a lot of us know that archetype, right? Someone who gets stuck in one new fancy reality tunnel. I am just a collection of atoms, or it's all an illusion, or I am God, right? A lot of people that come back from like ayahuasca. And by the way, I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek talking shit about it, because the funniest stories and experiences that I've had with people is that they did ayahuasca a bunch of times and they're stuck in this negative imprint of the cosmic schmuck, right? So they they fancy a reality tunnel that just says, I'm a collection of atoms, it's just an illusion, right? And it becomes just as dogmatic as a circuitry literalist, but with a more abstract vocabulary, which could be very convincing to others who are very open and receptive to the influences of somebody that they don't actually know what the fuck they're doing, but the way that they speak, the words that they're using, like love and light and all that shit. I mean, that's how they start cults, right? The neurophysiology of the circuit is the entire nervous system becomes a recursive, self-reflective instrument associated with the frontal lobes. So it's not endemic specifically to central or peripheral. It's the entire nervous system, spinal cord, central, peripheral, and the brain. All of the neurons, the entire nervous system, because your nervous system is your first go-to sensory receiver as you interface with reality, right? Cool. Key trigger, high dose psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, right? Advanced shamanic practices, deep Jungian work, and rigorous deconstruction practices from philosophies like Zen. But again, even the Jungian stuff, right? The Gnostics, it's, yeah. So you're not just accepting these things that you willy-nilly your way through by eating a handful of mushrooms at one time at EDC. You take that stuff and you don't run with it outward, you run with it inward, and you want to understand it more. You want to see how you could apply it, what it actually fucking means, right? Cool. And now circuit 7, the neurogenetic circuit. So the question, what is the pattern that connects all life? What is the collective mind? Primary polarities, individual soul, the Atman, right? Versus the collective soul, the Brahman, right? Stage of imprint, associated in moments of profound mystical union. It's governed by access to the collective unconscious, but truly accessing the collective unconscious, which means, will you spell that out, Jungian? Carl, C-A-R-L, Jung, J-U-N-G, Carl Jung. The J sounds like a Y. No, it sounds like a Y, not a Y. But anyways, let's see. So, stage of imprint, access in moments of profound mystical union, governed by the access to the collective unconsciousness, not just because you saw it from the doorway, the door frame, right? You were immersed in the collective unconsciousness. This is what gives way to Christ consciousness, right? The state of Buddha, right? Because you get to see the collectives. Let's call it good and evil. The collectives light and dark. The collectives right doings and wrong doings. And man, you think you know what evil or dark is? When you go into the collective unconscious, and then later on, if you want to go further, which I think you should, you don't judge it. You just see, what the fuck? It's wild, bro. Anyways, we're not going to go there. But positive imprints. Oh, by the way, okay, so the access to the collective unconsciousness, the DNA database, or the Akashic records, right? It's the experience of being the entire evolutionary stream of life. The whole shebang. Not just you. You're welcome. Not just you. All of it, right? Past lives, archetypes, and the Jungian world are accessed here. All the raw archetypes about us, right? This is where we projected. This is the location that gave way to the projection into the universe, into the world of things like gods, goddesses, right? The archetypes, angels, demons, incubi, succubi, like all that stuff came from those very deep parts of us, right? So a positive imprint of this circuit is the realization that I am part of a vast, interconnected, evolving biological and spiritual intelligence. You experience profound connection to all living things and access the wisdom of the species, not just human, of everything. And just to plug that in real quick, this is a circuit that I work with a lot with the animal work. And this is, by the way, I know I said this a long time ago that I'm going to do lives on each animal and get very in depth with it. I haven't because I'm now learning more how to talk about these animals and the experiences and what they are and what they can offer and what they do offer no matter who you are. And because animals represent these very deep collective unconscious archetypes that are within us, which is why animals have been, the moment that humans started to tell stories, there's all stories always connected, animals somehow. Animal wisdom, right? Animal trickery, animal learning, all that stuff. They're direct reflections, but not just reflections like Mars or Venus. They actually exist in our reality and they operate on their own, right? They're sentient and they're becoming conscious because we're becoming conscious all the fucking time, right? Cool. Negative imprint, overwhelmed by archetypal forces. Confusion of one's individual identity with cosmic forces, inflation, or a sense of existential terror at the vastness of the genetic memory. I've been through that with old Hermes Trismegistus. But yeah. It's neurophysiology, hypothesized to evolve the DNA, RNA communication system within every single cell of your body. So you start to hypothesize through conversation, through connection, like with the animals. You start to build a connection. You start to understand that every single cell in your body is not just part of your body, and it's not just what that cell is said to be or defined as by syntax science, materialistic sciences, but that you also start to project onto that cell an identity of its own, and you can talk to that cell as an individual, like if it was a person. You could even like anthropomorphize a personality to different types of cells in the body. But the point is, you start to create a relationship with your DNA, cells, RNA, right? This is how you can talk to, let's say, like a cluster of cancer cells, right? What is cancer? In a nutshell, cancer is not like a disease that you picked up from somewhere, right? Cancer can be triggered, right? You can have predisposition to cancer in your genes, right? In your DNA that can be turned on or whatever due to environmental factors, right? But the point is, cancer is a cell in the body, whether it's in the brain, right? In the heart, in the blood, in the bones, in the lungs, right? That starts to think differently from all the other cells that are the same. But this also gives proof to what I was saying before, that everything is its own individual thing, right? Learning to become conscious. That one cell, right? Let's say it's a specific cell in the heart is surrounded by a bunch of other cells that are exactly the same, but they're not, because that one cell has now somehow, for some weird reason, decided to think differently from all the other cells around it. And because it's doing so, it is not operating the way that it's supposed to be. If you are that cell in that specific organ or system in the body, you have a job to do. If you do not do that job, well, one cell, it's not the worst thing, but it starts to spread that message to the cells closest to it, and this is how you get tumor. And a tumor can turn into stage 1, 2, 3, 4 cancer, right? It's not an external disease, right, that you have to destroy with chemotherapy and shit like that. Again, we won't talk about this outside of here, right? But you can talk to those cancer cells, which would immediately trigger a response from those cells. Oh, whoa. This thing, you might be like a voice of reason or God or whatever to the cell, right? And acknowledge it. Hey, I know that you're part of me, because it is. A cancer cell is not alien. It's part of you. It's yours. It belongs, it's part of the body, right? And it thinks that it belongs there. It's just in a different state of being than all the other ones, right? And I kind of respect that. I admire that. But if it's not grounded, right? It's not rooted in some sort of something. It just does the thing. It doesn't understand that that it will destroy all things, and it will shut down the entire fucking body, which means ultimately its own demise, right? You can tell a cancer cell or a cluster of cancer cells or tumor, that by acknowledging it, by knowing that it's there and not judging it, but letting it know, like, look, I appreciate what you have done before you changed your mind about something. And I do appreciate that you are here. But what if we can share our body, the body? I don't destroy you with chemo and all this stuff, but you do me a favor. You help me. And all the other guys that you talk to, changing their minds, you help me live in a healthy way. And I won't destroy you. I won't go to a doctor. I won't I won't let them do chemo, radiation therapy, none of that stuff. If you can just cut it out. Cut it out. I'm asking you to behave yourself, to treat me with the love and respect that I'm treating you with. And you can go back to the doctor, in a few months, and they'll be like, what'd you take? What'd you do? It's gone. Anyways, but yeah. So, neurophysiology of circuit 7 hypothesized to involve the DNA RNA communication system with every cell, what I just described. Key trigger: favorite high doses of psychedelics, near-death experiences, or clinical death experiences, spiritual experiences, right? And the deepest stages of mystical contemplation. New information shows up, don't run with it. Contemplate on it. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Contemplate it. The difference between a paragraph with directions and a poem. Contemplate it and see what you can do with it. And now the final circuit, circuit 8, the neuroatomic metaphysical circuit. The question for this one is, what is consciousness beyond life and form? What is the non-local I? Primary polarities: quantum consciousness, non-locality, versus material existence, locality, right? Stage of imprint: this is the rarest states of being beyond the human life cycle. It governs pure, non-local consciousness beyond space-time. It is the experience of the cosmic consciousness that precedes and underlies the physical universe. This is the circuit of the photon, the quantum wave, and the void. A positive imprint of this is the realization that consciousness is fundamental and universal. You are not your body, your mind, or your DNA. You are the awareness in which the universe arises. This is the stage of the immortal or non-local self. This is the philosopher's stone. This is nirvana. This is the state of Buddha. This is Christ consciousness, right? Negative imprint is incomprehensible from a human perspective. Perhaps a complete dissolution of the self that is perceived as annihilation or nirvana depending on the observer's preparation, right? The neurophysiology of this is it's hypothesized to operate at the quantum level, beyond the brain, connecting to the non-local information of the universe. So this circuit, the neuroatomic metaphysical circuit, you're not going to get there and come back. You can get close and leave something, and come back here and leave something, but you cannot fully immerse yourself with this circuit and complete the circuit and stay alive. Like, you can't. Probably because you won't. The simulation, the dream, the reality, 3D, 4D, it can't hold that. It can't hold that energy, right? I think that you can get close to it and leave something here. Maybe that guy, Jesus, right? Maybe he was real. Beyond just being a program, right? And maybe the reason why, he went through the final trial, they crucified his ass, right? And he did it, right? Having faith to achieve the 8th circuit, the neuroatomic metaphysical circuit. He dies up there. They bring him down. But I don't think he was dead still, because 3 days later he comes back, but just for a moment, and leaves codes here, leaves data, and then disappears. Rainbow body, light body, whatever you call it. You cannot achieve the circuit and stay here. So he left whatever he could leave, and we still misinterpret what he said, or we allow manipulation of what he said. Excuse me. But yeah, so this is the eightfold maze. The work, as Robert Anton Wilson via Timothy Leary proposed, is to awaken each circuit, imprint it positively, and then integrate it so that you can consciously navigate the mud of circuit 1 to the stars of circuit 8 and back again at will. All right? You have to do this willingly. So, and you have to know about it if you're going to go there. Awesome. So, that was, what time is it? Should I keep going? What I was going to do now is recap very quickly each circuit and what we can do, practices, disciplines, or whatever, to address that circuit if it's been corrupted by malware, by fucked up experiences, right? So I'm not getting a response. I'm just going to go with yes. All right. So the biosurvival circuit is the foundation, imprinted in infancy. This is the first one. It's our most basic operating system. It answers the primordial question: is this environment safe or dangerous? Right? Its function governs sucking, clinging, cuddling, crying, orients us toward nourishment and away from threat. Positive imprint: the world is safe, nurturing, supportive womb. The universe is my mother. This leads to basic trust, relaxation, and an open receiving posture towards life. A negative one is the world is dangerous, withholding, hostile place. This leads to chronic anxiety, paranoia, the defensive posture, and a sense of fundamental insecurity, right? And so here are some methods to address that number one circuit. Somatic and sensory regrounding. The biosurvival circuit is pre-verbal and entirely physical. Remember that. The oral biosurvival circuit is pre-verbal. It's entirely physical. You cannot think your way out of circuit 1 imprint. You must experience your way out. Conscious touching and cuddling. Engage in non-sexual nurturing touch. This could be through professional cuddling therapy, partner massage, or even self-massaging with high-quality oils, you know. The key is to receive touch with the intention of safety and nourishment, not performance or goal-oriented, right? That's the thinking stuff. That's the verbal stuff. Just basic touching, right? For some of us, we might not have gotten those things, or we had, fucked up, crazy, violent, abusive, or, sexually abusive experiences, and that circuit got corrupted. And what I just mentioned are ways that we can rewire and re-imprint. And we don't just do it one time, we keep doing it because we also have to condition the imprinting that we're doing, the new imprinting. And we have to, it helps if you also learn new ways, the learning circuit of the nonverbal stuff to address the malware that was in the original circuit, in the first circuit. Warmth and womb-like environments. Spend time in flotation tanks, sensory deprivation, right? No word, nonverbal. Hot baths, saunas, or under heavy blankets. These environments simulate the safety, warmth, and weightlessness of the womb, sending direct signals to the nervous system that you are supported. Now, hear me out. What if that circuit of yours has been corrupted with malware when you were a baby, right? And you have done flotation tanks and stuff like that, right? Weighted blankets and stuff. But you still have it's like a threat, a danger with like affection, physical touch, cuddling with your partner or something, right? I've already done those things. How come that hasn't changed the circuit? Because you have to use your will. Think about it. So when you go the next time, if you have this circuit that's been corrupted, the next time you go do something like get under your weighted blanket, go to, flotation, like sensory deprivation tanks, or flotation tanks, think about what I just shared with that circuit and go in there with the intention, using your will. This is a way of me re-imprinting, reconditioning, and relearning for this circuit to be changed. That's it. But you actually have to think about it, right? If you don't, nothing's going to happen. You have to actually have intention behind it. Why am I going in here today? Well, Raven or this crazy alchemist said this thing about this circuit, and I'm going to try this out and go back and do it with that intention. And it won't happen just once. And you might have an experience where you go try this thing that you have already done, but now you're doing it with this intention that we're, sharing. You might cry. But it's not crying because you're scared. It's crying because you're releasing the old, nervous, anxious, threatened, scared circuitry. You're releasing it, and it's okay. Besides, if you're like in your own house in a weighted blanket or in a isolation, tank, no one can hear you anyways. Cry. It's okay. But just know, the crying, I'm crying right now. Don't think about it. You already know that you're releasing the old stuff. That's all. Okay? Breath work as nourishment. So the warmth and womb-like environments. These environments stimulate the safety, warmth, and weightlessness of the womb, sending direct signals to the nervous system that you are supported. Just want to make sure I said that again. Breath work as nourishment. Practices like coherent breathing. 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. Or simple deep Diaphragmatic breathing signals to the vagus nerve that the body is safe. The breath becomes the primal nourishment, the oral intake of safety. And radical safety in the senses. Consciously expose yourself to gentle, pleasant sensory inputs, listening to soothing ambient music or womb-like sounds, like solfeggio frequencies, 432 hertz. Eat incredibly delicious, nutritious, and beautifully presented food, focusing entirely on the act of receiving nourishment. So you don't make yourself the beautifully made, delicious food. Maybe your partner does it. Maybe your parent does it. But that's the intention. You don't have to let them know about it, by the way. But your intention is to receive this as a form of nourishment that you did not receive when you were a kid, or that got corrupted, right? Number 2, reparenting the inner infant. This is direct dialogue with the part of you that holds the original imprint. This is still addressing the oral biosurvival circuit. This is a direct dialogue with the part of you that holds the original imprint. Guided visualizations and hypnosis, use scripts or recordings that guide you back to a re-imprinting scene. Visualize yourself as a loving divine parent to your infant self. See yourself providing perfect safety, warmth, food, and comfort. The subconscious mind often cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. Journaling from the infant's perspective. Write down with your non-dominant hand, right? If I'm a righty, I'll do it with my left, and the other way around. To access more primal right brain functions, and let your inner infant speak. What is it afraid of? What does it need? Then respond with your dominant hand as the nurturing adult, providing the reassurance and safety that it craves. You guys are still here, fuck yeah. Behavioral re-imprinting and acting as if. Number 3. As Robert Anton Wilson loved to say, what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. You must act in ways that assume the universe is safe and supportive, thereby forcing your neurology to remap itself to the new reality. The universe is my mother game. For a designated period, an hour a day, consciously operate under the assumption that the entire environment is conspiring to support and nurture you. The person who smiles at you is the universe offering comfort. The green light is the universe clearing your path. The food you eat is a direct gift. This isn't naive. It's a deliberate neuro-linguistic programming exercise for Circuit 1. Micro-trust exercises. Start with small calculated risks that challenge your biosurvival paranoia. Walk into a safe park barefoot, connecting directly with the safe earth. Accept a drink or food from a trusted friend without suspicion. Each small act of trust that ends positively is a new data point for a new safe world imprint. Let's see. Hold on. I might have gotten things a little. So that was for Circuit 1. All right. Meta-programming via Circuit 5. So we're still re-imprinting, reprogramming Circuit 1, oral bios survival circuit. Number 4, we're going to do this meta-programming via the 5th circuit, the newer circuit, the neurosomatic circuit. You can use a higher circuit to reprogram a lower one. Right? Circuit 5, the first of the post-terrestrial circuits, is all about somatic bliss and the feeling that all is perfect in the universe at this very moment. Ecstatic dance and freedom movement. Shake off the frozen defensive postures of Circuit 1 anxiety. By moving your body in nonlinear joyful ways, you break the muscular armor and allow somatic bliss to flow. This state directly overrides the danger signal with a bliss signal. Again, this is going to happen in the first try. You need to re-imprint it again. You're relearning, right? You're reteaching the circuits, your cells. So you have to repeat these things. And don't have an expectation of, is it going to work? I'm doing this but just know, focus on, not whether it's working or going to work or not. Focus on the task at hand. You're interacting with infant aspects of yourself, right? Your inner child, your inner infant, right? The inner baby, the inner 10-year-old, right? The child. You have to teach it, which means you have to repeat these things. Don't try to, give it like a deadline or anything like that. It doesn't matter, because doing this is more important than anything else in your life. Way more fucking important, because it's you and old aspects of you. You got to repeat this stuff. Then there is cannabis or psychedelics, right? With intention and caution. Excuse me. In the Leary Wilson model, specific substances can be tools for circuit activation. A low dose of cannabis can profoundly shift somatic awareness, making touch, taste, and warmth feel incredibly nourishing and safe. A substance like MDMA, in a safe therapeutic context, right, is almost a direct biosurvival re-imprinter, flooding the system with feelings of safety, love, and connection. This is a serious undertaking and must be approached with respect, setting, and intention. And then there is deep states of meditation. Certain meditative states, particularly like jhana, samadhi, produce a profound sense of somatic well-being and dissolution of threat that is independent of external circumstances. This is the ultimate proof to the organism that the safety is an internal state. And then the re-imprinting mantra, a simple somatic mantra to hold throughout this work, especially when you're feeling anxiety rising. So you might, you'll start to do something like the practice going into a deprivation chamber, whatever the fuck, right? You might start to feel anxiety because, remember, the first four circuits are non-negotiable. The first circuit especially, non-negotiable, right? So when you are recreating something sensory, right, nonverbal, that had trauma or malware imprinted into it, right? Now you're going to try touching yourself, cuddling with someone, right? Or sensory deprivation. You're activating that oral biosurvival circuit. And you might, if not almost certainly, experience a bit of anxiety or a lot of it. Well, one thing that I know about anxiety is that anxiety is a type of excitement. Anxiety is not a bad word. Anxiety is excitement. Your heart starts to race, right? Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure might go up, right? Your senses might heighten, right? And don't think that you are looking out for danger. And although the circuit may be doing that, just know I'm feeling excitement because I'm reopening a circuit real quick. I'm triggering it. I'm activating it. But it's okay, right? So try a mantra. Write your own mantra, change it over time if you need to. But something simple like, I am safe, I am nourished, I am supported. That's it. Feel this in your body, in your breath, in the ground beneath your feet. You are not trying to convince your mind. You are communicating directly to the ancient oral consciousness of Circuit 1. All right, one more time. You're not trying to convince your mind, because your mind is not part of this, right? That's verbal stuff. This is nonverbal, physical, right? You are communicating directly to the ancient oral consciousness of Circuit 1. The goal is to shift from a default state of clenched, defensive, anxious, withholding state to a default state of openness, receiving, trusting, nourished. This is the fundamental work of becoming a healthy, functioning, and ultimately evolving human being. Reprogramming Circuit 2, the anal emotional territorial circuit, right? Recap, it's about power, emotion, and status. A negative imprint here leaves you stuck in games of dominance and submission, ruled by raw, unprocessed emotion, a lot of reactivity, right? Reprogramming it is about moving from reactive emotion to conscious will, and from rigid control to fluid power, right? The goal, to replace robotic control or helpless submission with a sense of authentic personal power and emotional fluency. Methods of re-imprinting this circuit. Conscious emotional alchemy, the witness practice, right? When a strong emotion like rage, shame, or fear arises, the raw fuel of Circuit 2, do not suppress it or blindly act it out. Instead, sit with it. Feel it physically in your body. Locate the sensation. It is a clench in the jaw. Is it a clench in the jaw, rage? Is this sinking in the gut, shame? Label the emotion silently. This is rage. This is shame. By witnessing it, you create a space between the raw Circuit 2 impulse and your conscious self. You are no longer the emotion. You are the one experiencing the emotion. This is the first step to mastering that. The power posture and breath work. Circuit 2 is deeply tied to the body's posture and chemistry. When feeling subordinate or threatened, the body collapses. When feeling tyrannical, it puffs up. Practice power postures, like the Wonder Woman stance, feet apart, hands on the hips, for 2 minutes to biochemically increase testosterone and decrease cortisol, signaling safety and power to the limbic system. Combine this with a long, slow exhale. The exhale is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, which directly counteracts the fight or flight agitation of a triggered Circuit 2. 3. Strategic games in play. Engage in games with clear winners and losers where the stakes are low. Chess, competitive sports, or even video games. The goal is to practice wielding power and strategy, experiencing both victory and defeat, and learning that your worth is not permanently defined by either. This desensitizes you to the dominant/submission charge of the circuit. Re-imprinting through theater and role play. Join an improv or theater group. Consciously take on roles of both powerful kings, queens, and helpless peasants. This allows you to safely try on different power dynamics and discover that they are roles to be played, not fixed. Immutable realities. You learn to wear power like a loose garment. 5. Shadow work in the inner tyrant and inner worm. Identify your default Circuit 2 mode. Are you a controller, a tyrant, or a submitter, a worm? Journal a dialogue between these two parts. Let the tyrant voice its fears. If I'm not in control, everything will fall apart. Let the worm voice its resentment and helplessness. Facilitate a negotiation between them, aiming for integration into a balanced, powerful adult. And now, reprogramming Circuit 3. The time-binding somatic circuit. This circuit is about meaning, logic, and symbolism. A negative imprint here traps you into semantic loops, dogmatic thinking, and a literalistic prison of your own concepts. Reprogramming it is about freeing thought from its own structures. The goal? To shift from being used by your symbols and concepts to consciously use them as flexible tools. Methods for reprinting. E prime, English prime. For a designated period, try to speak and think without using the verb to be. Is, am, are, was, were. This eliminates identity statements and hidden assumptions. Instead of saying he is an idiot, you might say he acted in a way that I label as idiotic. This forces you to describe the process and your own evaluation, breaking the hypnotic spells of labels. It shatters dogmatic isness. Right? Does that make sense? Instead of saying that a person is an idiot, you then say he acted or is acting in a way that I consider idiotic. Right? Learning, and that stops you from reinforcing and reprogramming that person is an idiot. Right? Like, we might do shit like this in our own loving relationships. That person is annoying. Right? That person is acting in a way that I consider, in a way that I react or I feel is idiotic, right? It's stupid, whatever the fuck. But that way you separate yourself from labeling them, and you just get to the gist and to the facts that that's how you're thinking or feeling. Learning a new symbolic system. Force your brain to create new neural pathways by learning a completely new and complex symbolic language. This could be a spoken language, like Mandarin or Arabic, right? A programming language, like Python, right, for computers. Or a formal logic system. The struggle and eventual mastery prove to your neurology that any semantic reality is a construct, and you can learn to navigate multiple constructs. 3, non-linear and creative expression. Engage in activities that deliberately bypass linear logical circuitry. Write stream of consciousness poetry. Create abstract art. Compose music without formal training. Play. We're just playing. We're having fun with this stuff, right? We are addressing serious things, but not in a serious manner. We're being playful. The goal is to access the raw pre-symbolic mind of the right hemisphere and then bring those patterns back into the symbolic world, thus showing circuit 3 that it is not the sole master of perception. 4, as if games for beliefs. Pick a belief that you hold dearly. Like, my political party is right, my religious, spiritual belief is right? Now, for one day, act as if the exact opposite belief were true. Consciously seek out evidence and arguments that support the opposite view. So the same way that you have this one political view, right? This is what I believe politically. This is, blah, blah, blah. Tomorrow, role play, and do the same thing, but with the opposite, right? Because if I choose this political party, that means that I'm against the other political party, right? So tomorrow, you switch the roles and see what you come up with. That's it. And then 5, consciously seek out evidence and arguments that support the opposite view. All right. So today, I choose blue, right? Well, tomorrow I'm gonna choose red, and I'm gonna back my belief behind backing up red. See if you can actually really convince yourself. Hopefully not to a point where now you go from blue to red, right? But that could also be beneficial. But just to practice trying something different, you'll find as you practice it, it won't even take much long. It won't take long before you start to get in your neurology, your circuits start to understand, like, oh shit, it's just a game. Like, what I believe is the right choice or the right side, the correct path or manner. It's a game. It's a game of choice and fucking believe. I can switch it at any time. And then there's psychedelic deconstruction with caution. And we already talked about this with the previous circuit. Psychedelics like psilocybin or LSD can temporarily dissolve the semantic constructs of circuit 3, right? Boundary dissolution, as Terence McKenna would say. Words may lose their meaning, logical sequences may break down, and you can directly experience the world without the filter of language. Which, again, language is retarded, right? Like the definition of retarded. It holds us back. Tower of Babel or Babel. This experience integrated afterwards, you gotta integrate the psychedelic experience afterwards, provides lasting evidence that the solid world of meaning you live in is a fragile consensus of reality. It's a game. That's it. 4. So let's see. We just did circuit 3. Now 4 is going to be reprogramming circuit 4. The moral, social, sexual circuit. This circuit is about tribal morality, roles, and reciprocal sexuality. A negative imprint here burdens you with a heavy conscience, guilt, and rigid, unfulfilling social roles. Reprogramming it is about moving from a moralistic parent point to a social sexual adult mode. The goal? To replace guilt and role-playing with conscious, compassionate morality and the capacity for intimate reciprocal pleasure. Methods for imprinting. 1. Tribal anthropology and reality tunnels. Consciously study different cultures, subcultures, and historical periods. Read about the sexual and moral practices of the ancient Greeks, Tibetan Buddhists, or the Polynesian Islanders, right? All words are lies, right? The goal is to achieve cognitive relativism, the realization that your tribe's morality is just one of thousands of possible software programs. This detaches you from the absolute authority of your local imprint and allows you to choose your ethics consciously, willingly, and intentionally, right? Like I think it was like less than 100 years ago or 100 years ago, pianos used to wear pants. Think about that. You can look it up later, but because there was something phallic about it, right? And now we don't even fucking think about that. Or women covered their fucking ankles. And if back then a lady showed me her ankle, probably gonna go home and touch myself because she showed me her ankle. Crazy, right? Like how much as a society these things can evolve. But then we have cultures that, still cut clitorises off, right? And circumcisions still happen for some stupid, weird, tribal, ancient, god, babble. Anyways, you can change these things around by knowing that what you and your little tribe or crew or culture, ethnicity, whatever, believe moralistically, it's just a fucking preset game that you guys have socially agreed to play upon and within. And that shit might fly very fucking differently when you go to another country, another culture, another society. Let's see. So the goal, to replace guilt and role-playing with conscious, compassionate morality and the capacity for intimate reciprocal pleasure. Methods. 1, tribal anthropology, right? We just went through that. And 2, conscious role shedding, the mask party. Identify the primary social masks you wear. The good employee, the dutiful child, the responsible parent, and so on. Deliberately engage in an activity where you are unknown, and can shed these masks. Go to a festival in another city, engage in anonymous online forums about a new interest. The goal is to have experiences where your worth is not tied to your tribal role. 3, sensate focus and de-objectification. To reprogram the social sexual aspect, the goal is to move from performance-based sexuality to sensation-based pleasure. Practice solo or partnered exercises where the goal is not to orgasm, but to explore touch and sensation with curiosity and no goal. That's it. Just experiencing each other. This could be a body scan meditation or partnered sensate focus exercises from sex therapy. This breaks the connection between sexuality and achievement/guilt. 4, the no-fault game for guilt. Excuse me. When you feel guilt, it's the hallmark of negatively imprinted circuit 4. Perform a rigorous analysis. Ask, whose rule did I break? My parents? Ouch. My church? My culture? Right? And do I consciously choose to uphold this rule as a free adult? Often you will find that you're feeling guilt for violating a program you didn't even agree with. Consciously absolve yourself and, if necessary, make amends from a place of adult responsibility, not childish guilt. 5, exploring ethical systems. Don't just rebel against morality. Build a better one. Systematically study different ethical frameworks. Utilitarianism, stoicism, virtue ethics, Buddhist precepts, etc. Consciously choose which principles you wish to guide your life. This moves you from being a passive recipient of tribal morality, circuit 4 negative, to an active architect of your own ethical code, circuit 4 positive. By working through these circuits in sequence, you build a solid foundation. A safe body, 1, a fluid will, 2, a flexible mind, 3, and a conscious morality, 4. Create a fully functioning terrestrial human, ready to explore the post-terrestrial delights of the higher circuits. The work continues. So, the higher circuits, 5 through 8, they are the emergent evolutionary post-terrestrial stack. They are not about adapting to the world as it is, but about transcending it, and creating new worlds. They precapitulate our future. Accessing them is an act of rebellion against the conservative gravity of the first 4 circuits. You're not rebelling against the system outside, the governments or anything. You're rebelling against the old preset programs, imprints, conditioning, right? Learning from the first 4 antique circuits, right? The only thing that you should be rebelling against is against the way that you've been hardwired. That's it. You might, and if you try that, if you do it and keep working at it, you will find that when you come back, there's nothing to rebel against. There's nothing to fight. There's nothing to resist. It's just been in your fucking head the whole time. Let's see. So, advancing circuit 5, the neurosomatic circuit. The shift from somatic anxiety to somatic bliss. From linear time to the eternal, infinite now. This is the first break from the mammalian terrestrial reality. So it's not gonna be easy. It's the discovery that the body is not a sack of suffering, but a vessel of ecstasy. And that the present moment is a dimension to be inhabited, not a fleeting point between past and future. So, methods for advancing circuit 5, the neurosomatic circuit. Chaos magic and sigil work. This is pure circuit 5-6 technology. The process of creating a sigil by stating a desire, removing the vowels, and repeating letters, and forming an abstract glyph with the letters that you have left over. Bypass circuit 3 and 4 semantic censorship. The act of charging the sigil through gnosis, ecstatic dance, sexual arousal, fatigue, or sensory overload is a direct circuit 5 somatic blast. The result is a reprogramming of reality from a level before symbols. Tantric and ecstatic dance. Moving the body in non-repetitive, flowing, so not choreographed, right? Flowing, spontaneous patterns breaks the muscular armor. You know, they say that trauma can exist in the body somehow. You can break through, push through, and release those trauma or traumatized parts or centers of the body through ecstatic dance and tantric movement. But again, you don't choreograph it. You just fucking do it. The body will start to show you through its movements, and it knows exactly where to go. It knows exactly how to swing, sway, or whatever the fuck, and it'll move it. It'll move it. Because again, all these techniques that we're talking about, you are doing what? You're applying intention. This is what I want through your free will, right? You're not just doing it and then nothing happens because there was no set intention, right? So let's see. So doing this spontaneous pattern breaks the muscular armor, Reichian theory, that stores the anxieties of circuits 1 through 4. The goal is to achieve a state where the dancer disappears and only the dance remains. A perfect somatic flow state. Combined with conscious breath work, it induces a body high that is the hallmark of an active circuit 5. Psychedelic somatic therapy, psilocybin, MDMA in guided settings. A moderate dose of psilocybin, taken with the intention of listening to the body, can dissolve chronic pain, anxiety, and trauma held in the tissues. MDMA, as a heart-opening agent, can flood the system with a sense of somatic safety and emphatic bliss, directly overriding the defensive postures of circuits 1 and 2. And then there's sensory deprivation. Flow tanks. By removing almost all external sensory data, the nervous system stops processing the outside world and turns inward. This often triggers a spontaneous shift in the neurosomatic state, a feeling of weightlessness, boundless space, and a profound peace. It's a direct experience of the body as a field of consciousness, not a solid object. Advancing Circuit 6, the meta-programming circuit. So, doisty. I haven't taught this much in a long time. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Advancing Circuit 6, the meta-programming circuit. The shift from being a program to being the programmer. From having a reality tunnel to knowing that you have one and being able to change it. Right? This is the deity circuit in practical terms. It's the awareness that your perceptions, beliefs, and even your sense of I are temporary programs. The Circuit 6 operative is a reality hacker, right? Neosha stuff. So methods for advancing this circuit. High dose of psychedelics. By the time you get to the circuit, we're not talking about like a little bit and like in the therapeutics. We're talking like balls to the wall. Like we're going in, right? You don't start this way. You work your way up to that point because, yeah, a strong dose, like 200 plus UG of LSD, 5 grams or more of psilocybin in silent darkness, right? No music, no chimes, no incense burning, right? No gongs, no drums. Why? Because we're going higher now. We're going into, we're at Circuit 6. We're going beyond the human, right? We're not concerned about social structures and morality or anything like that. We're going way beyond that, right? They act as a reboot for the entire operating system. It forcibly dismantles the constructs of circuits 1 through 4, allowing you to see the source code of your personality. In this state, you can consciously encounter and rewrite core beliefs, traumas, and self-definition programs. The key is integration afterwards, though. You don't just do it and then, I am God, I am everything, I can do whatever I want. Like, you integrate it. Still integrating intense experiences from 10 years ago, right? This is the deity circuit. In practical terms, it's the awareness that your perceptions, beliefs, and even your sense of I are temporary programs. The Circuit 6 operative is reality hacker. That's it. Methods for advancement, right? We already did the LSD, mushrooms, right? NLP and advanced hypnotic states. NLP, or neuro linguistic programming, is essentially a formalized circuit 6 technology for meta programming. Techniques like reframing, timeline therapy, and change personal history are direct inventions of in the subjective coding of experience. Self-hypnosis, or working with a skilled hypnotist, allows you to bypass the critical faculty, circuits 3 and 4, and install new directives directly into the subconscious. Another one is chaos magic paradigm shifting. The core practice of a chaos magician is to consciously, willfully, and completely change their belief system paradigms, right? For a period of time. 1 week, you might operate as a devout Catholic, the next as a rationalist, atheist, the next as an animist. This is a brutal workout for the meta-programming circuit, proving beyond doubt that all is belief, a tool, and not a truth. Who am I? Inquiry. This is a dry psychedelic. By relentlessly asking, who am I, and rejecting all conceptual answers, a body, a mind, a story, a human, a piece of the one, right? All that shit, you systematically deconstruct the central program, the self. The program of all programs is the self, the I, the me. When this program is seen as empty, the meta-programmer is what remains, the space in which all programs arise. You are the source for all of the bullshit, but you're also the source of all the beauty. All right, now advancing circuit 7, the neurogenetic circuit, the shift from the individual ego to the collective species mind, right? From personal memory to genetic and archetypal memory. This circuit is your connection to the Jungian collective unconsciousness, the DNA database, or the Akashic records. It's the experience of no longer just being John Smith, right? But being the entire evolutionary stream that resulted in the creation or formation or existence of John Smith. So it's not just this one moment now as this identity of Raven, right? It's everything before, during, and after, because I'm not Raven, right? Methods for advancing this one. Intense ketamine K-holes. Ketamine is a key tool for circuit 7. In a K-hole, the sense of individual self and body completely dissolves. Users report traveling through fractal symbolic landscapes, encountering archetypal beings, and experiencing a sense of merging with a vast informational network. Data, right? Information, stories. That's it. This is a direct chemical induction into the non-local genetic data stream. Also dream work and active imagination. By keeping a detailed dream journal and learning to enter a state of active imagination, awakened dream state, right? You can begin a dialogue with the archetypes that populate circuit 7. You're no longer just having a dream, you are visiting the collective dreamscape and interacting with its inhabitants. The hero, the shadow, the animus, the wise old man, the woman, the wizard, right? The king, the queen, all that. Then we have past life regression, hypnotic or psychedelic. Whether these are imprinted as literal past lives or as symbolic encounters with your own from a conscious circuit 3-4 perspective, it's a profound shock to the ego and a direct taste of circuit 7's transpersonal identity, right? So you go from personal to transpersonal. This should be the only trans anything that we should be talking about nowadays. Ritual magic and evocation. High-level ceremonial magic is a technology for consciously interacting with the archetypal forces of Circuit 7 by creating a symbolic space, the circle, the altar, and using prescribed invocations. The magician calls down or evokes a specific force. Like calling upon the forces of Mars, right? For courage, right? The warrior, or Venus for love. But not because these are real, you now understand that they are just concepts, they're programs, they are their own circuits, right? You could just borrow that to play around with. That's it. Because again, right? What is all this? It's a game. This is a controlled, deliberate channeling of the collective unconscious. And finally, advancing circuit 8, the neuroatomic metaphysical circuit. The shift from the biological to non-local, from being a wave in the ocean to being the entire ocean and the space containing it. So you're not H2O, one little molecule, right? You're not just the ocean, right? But you are the ocean, right? But you're more. You're the sand. You're the shore that it crashes on. You're the sand. You're the little, sand. What do they call it? Sand lice that are hanging around, right? You're the conch shell you're the snail. You're all of it, until you find yourself right back, right? This is the final frontier of the consciousness model. It is pure non-local awareness beyond life and death, space and time. It is the consciousness of the photon, the quantum vacuum, the void from which all things spring. Like I said before, if you get to this circuit and you work it out with yourself, right? You're not gonna fully complete this circuit. You can fuck around with it, but you're not going to complete it, because full completion of the circuit is transcendence. But that's okay too. Maybe right now, for right now, let's stay alive, right? Breathing, existing, right? And here and now, right? That's all cool. But with this, you already understand, you've been doing it, you played around with it. Transcendence is the next step when completing this. And I don't even know if it fucking completes, because we don't know where it goes, because we're here right now and nothing can come from beyond this and leave us a fucking message. I mean, maybe, yeah, but it's all abstract stuff and we always fucking dilute it, because we're here now. So it's a final frontier of consciousness. Pure non-local awareness, beyond life and death, right? Beyond here and now, space and time. It is the consciousness of the photon, the quantum vacuum, the void from which all things came, right? Void, no thing, right? No mind, no body, no salt, no mercury, no alcohol, and no mind, right? High dose of DMT, and then DMT, right, Bufo. This is the most direct and overwhelming key to Circuit 8. The DMT experience is often described as a hyper-real journey to other dimensions, contact with seemingly alien intelligences, and a complete dissolution of the self in a realm of pure conscious light information. By the way, I'm only sharing this final circuit. Because why not? I wasn't going to get into it because there's people that will say, "Oh yeah, no, I got there." It's like, no, because you came back and you still think that this deity or goddess, right? Ayahuasca, right? Like people fucking will go into like worship, right? Like it becomes synonymous with external importance, which then we internalize, and it's bullshit, dude. It's bullshit. Any entity, any deity, they're you, right? The I, right? It's probably just fucking with you anyways, because it can. Because why not, dude? If you're easily influenced, gullible, naive, I would probably fuck with you too if I lived in a different time, space, dimension kind of thing, right? High dose of NN-DMT. This is the most direct and overwhelming key to circuit 8. You want to overwhelm everything. Senses, sight, perception, perspective, belief, thought, awareness, everything. Flood it. And that's why you want to work your way here. Emptiness, right? Just allow, be, that's it. The experience is often described as a hyper-real journey to other dimensions, contact with seemingly alien intelligences, and a complete dissolution of the self or I into a realm of pure conscious light information. It is a direct encounter with the non-local, non-biological foundation of reality. The machine elves or self-transforming fractal beings reported are perhaps the native inhabitants of this circuit, right? So not like dimension, right, or anything like that. And okay, cool. So you have that experience, but if you've had this experience before, and some of you have, it wasn't from the place of having worked through these circuits and addressing and working through this 8th circuit because, well, you didn't know about these models. The models that you have been, you have accepted consciously and or unconsciously, but still doing the same chemicals, substances, drugs, right, that can get you to these places, right, but they're not places, states, right? States, that's it, temperature, that's all it is, right? If you don't have something like this kind of model, those things mean something that would otherwise, if you are doing this and you know, it's not that it's meaningless, it's just like, yes, cool. So when you talk about it, it doesn't become this conversation about the deity or the deities or the aliens or the machine elves about this thing. You might not even really want to talk about it much, right? Or you start to build a relationship with these aspects of self, right? This of that which you are throughout all time and space and beyond, and bring back information. Not to save the planet, not right, because if you can do all this and you're saving yourself, right, which is not the point, but then no one else has to. They don't, because you're the whole fucking shebang, right? It's experience. You're having a dream. Enjoy it, right? Okay, so the supreme path of non-dual practice. This is sustained, dedicated work of deconstructing reality through inquiry, like circuit, until even the metaprogrammer dissolve, like circuit 6, until even the metaprogrammer dissolves. In traditions like Mahamudra, the practitioner rests in the nature of mind, which is revealed to be vast, empty, luminous, and non-dual, right? This is not a temporary state, like a drug experience, but a permanent abiding in circuit 8 awareness, where the seer, the seeing, and the thing and the seen are all one, right? The seer, the thing that's being seen, right? The perceived, and then that thing also perceiving. That's not a thing anymore. It just is, right? For example, obviously I have not achieved this state because I'm here talking, even though I always say it's to myself, I am sharing this stuff with you guys, right? Cool. Near-death experiences, while not something to be sought, the NDE is a spontaneous and powerful circuit 8 event. Now, here's the thing, just like the psychedelics in circuit 8, if you haven't done work through the first 4 antique primordial circuits, You can have a near-death experience and come back and go, I gotta love everybody because I just met Christ. I just met Jesus, right? I must do all this because I just met Jesus. I met Buddha. I met, all this. That's not you having worked your way through down to circuit 8 and having that experience. That is you just like maybe even getting close to scratching the surface of circuit 8 phenomena, right? So a near-death experience doesn't necessarily mean, but I'm just saying, let's say you have or you haven't had a near-death experience, you might, right? Do this work, start to restructure, right? Let's not call it healing yourself, right? Let's call it re-circuiting, re-imprinting, right? Conditioning, deconditioning and reconditioning, right? De-imprinting and reprinting, right? And then relearning and all this stuff to get out of the 4 antique circuits, the biological primordial ones, so that once you do that work, you no longer have to go back there and address those circuits anymore. Now those circuits are at your service, and they always have been at your service, but they are now at your service through your own defined intentional free will, right? And awareness of what they are supposed to do. You're not healing them. You're just changing the codes. That's it, right? So, near-death experiences. If you can do this stuff and you wind up having a near-death experience or a clinical death experience or, a spiritual death experience on psychedelics or something like that, it'll be really fucking different than if you have experienced it in the past. And you'll see the difference for yourself. The life review, accessing all information simultaneously, right? Like accessing the Akashic records, right? The sense of unconditional love. Okay, so having and experiencing the sense of unconditional love, maybe the first time after having explored this and being operational in this circuit, you're not going, oh yeah, love is unconditional. You might not even fucking call it love. You'll just know, like, it might be just a wild, crazy fucking joke the entire fucking time, right? But the sense of unconditional love, the encounter with a brilliant light, and the feeling of being disembodied. Non-local consciousness are all hallmarks of the circuit. It is the ultimate pre-capitulation of the final dissolution of the physical vehicle. Learning how to die. All of this is really doing as well as learning how to die before you actually fucking die. That's it. There's a way to do it. There's a science to it. There's a method to it, right? There's models to it. This is just a very modern, revised version of a lot of the old models, because anything pure that hangs out in this reality long enough eventually gets misinterpreted and manipulated, whatever the fuck, right? Quantum consciousness meditation, using concepts from quantum physics as a focus for meditation, contemplating non-locality, the superposition of states, or the quantum vacuum can serve as a conceptual scaffold to allow the mind to glimpse a reality beyond classical Newtonian physics, right? The mind begins to identify with the field of potentiality itself, which is the domain of circuit 8. The journey through 5 through 8 is the great work of the evolutionary agent. It is the conscious participation of your own evolution, and by extension, the evolution of the species. You are no longer a passive passenger on spaceship Earth, but a co-pilot, learning to navigate the stars of inner space, right? If there's even an inner or outer. Okay. So, recap, right? All right, family, let's bring it all home. For those just joining, we've been diving deep into the deep end with Timothy Leary's 8-circuit model of consciousness, a map of our inner evolution. Here is a 60-second recap. Circuits 1 through 4 are the terrestrial software. They are ancient, conservative, and run to basics. Are you safe? Who's the boss? What does it mean? What are the tribal rules? Most of society's drama is just these old programs fighting for control. That's it. Circuits 5 through 8 are our post-terrestrial hardware. They're emergent, evolutionary, and they precapitulate our future. This is about somatic bliss, reprogramming your reality, accessing the collective mind, and merging with non-local consciousness. The work is simple, but not easy. First, get your ancient terrestrial stack in order. Then, dare to boot up new software. So as we wrap it up, I want to leave you with 3 things. First, hope, right? Hope comes from understanding that you are not broken. You are not stuck with the software you were installed with as a child. The anxiety, the rigid thinking, the guilt, that's just circuit 1, 2, 3, and 4, running old, buggy codes. The hope is in the realization that the code can be rewritten. You can access circuits of bliss, of cosmic connection, of pure creative power. Your biological and spiritual evolution is not over. It is waiting for you to consciously participate in it. Faith. Have faith in the map. Have faith in your own inner navigator. This isn't about believing in something external or higher. It's about trusting the profound intelligence of your own nervous system. When you engage in a breathwork practice, when you sit in meditation, when you courageously face a deep-seated fear, you're not just working on yourself, you're also conducting an experiment in consciousness. You're proving to yourself that there are realities behind the one that you've been taught. Have faith in the process of your own awakening. And finally, something important to think about. Are you operating in the ancient fear-based software of the tribal mammal? Or are you reaching for the emergent consciousness of the cosmic citizen? Every time you choose presence over panic, curiosity over dogma, love over fear, you're not just making a better day for yourself, you're casting a vote for the future of human evolution. You're not just a user of reality, you are a programmer. So, my final question to you is this. What reality will you code tonight and moving forward? Thank you all. I love you guys. Get out there, shine, do the fucking thing. I'll see you guys next week. We did it, and I did it because I've had to pee for an hour. I love you guys, and next week. Ciao.